on a, not even a 6 a.m., like a 5:50 a.m. flight, right?
Brutal.
So brutal. And
that's the day we wrote?
Yeah. And hopped into a rental car and showed up to your place, which is beautiful. And we wrote in the most beautiful setting with, you've got all these giant, like, succulent plants, and it was a gorgeous California, LA, perfect day. Just thinking back on that day, it was my first time ever meeting you, and your vibe and energy is just so wonderful. And, I had definitely heard a lot of your songs before, even before, I knew our writing session was even going to happen. And I'm definitely a big fan of yours, Garrison. And
thanks, Rachel. It means a lot.
I do remember that song, writing that song was hard. It was really, really hard because, Davis, you had that guitar vibe, and we were talking about a lofty concept, about, everything that kind of makes you who you are as a person. Yeah. And, that was a hard one for me to, especially after flying first thing in the morning, to wrap my brain around. After we finished it and after I let it breathe and came back to it, I realized we'd written something really, really special. It's become one of my favorite songs on the album, and I love everything about it. I love everything that it says. And what you did with it, Davis, that was so cool, was you just let it be what it needed to be. There's not crazy production on it. It's just simple and honest and beautiful.
This is one of the things I love about Davis as a writer. Like, Davis had a lot to do with the way that song came out in the writing process. I just remember Davis being excited and being like, this is amazing. It's who I am right now. I mean, I just remember his excitement. Same for me. I'm like, what the fuck are we writing about? I don't even know what we're saying. I don't know what to say. This is too big. I don't understand. I was so uncomfortable. And I felt like, oh my God, Rachel hates me. She thinks I'm a terrible writer. I'm not contributing anything. So then when I go back and listen to it today, I was just like, this is exactly how I felt as an artist. This is me too. And that, I think, is why it's so hard. Because, like, I have to disconnect sometimes in those really vulnerable writing sessions when it's about something real like that. Because as much as I say, oh yeah, it's whatever, I don't have a filter, it's like, well, I'm still a human being that really has a hard time facing their own vulnerability and your own insecurity. And I don't know, we did something so beautiful, and I'm so proud of it. And it's funny, in the moment, I think it was overwhelming emotionally for me. And the production is amazing. The whole thing is amazing.
The song in itself, right? When you write a life song, which that's a life song, that's a big thing, man. Anytime that idea of things gets thrown out in a session, you're like, oh, okay. I mean, really? Are we going to sign up for this? Are we going to get on this ride today? Because
what's it going to work for? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
It's the double black diamond. Once we kind of got around that idea of this is who I am right now, I think of two things. We had written a lot of the record at that point, and we had a lot of songs that were talking about Rachel's journey from, band to solo artist. And there's a lot of emotion that comes in those years. That idea of this is who I am right now was such a I'm gonna put down all of my expectations for anything and just be okay with who I am at this given moment. What an unbelievable, lesson, right? And this song felt so authentic. It felt so open for a listener to just find themselves in. And it felt commercial, and it felt, it kind of checked all these boxes that I didn't know that were going to get checked for this record.
Yeah.
This one song was no, I think we got it now. I think we have the record.
It was the last puzzle piece.
Yeah. It's so
was. And it's funny too, because it's probably the most country song on the entire album.
Funny. Yeah. Isn't that funny?
We're like, oh, well, we wrote it out in Los Angeles, and it ended up being that. And I had a lot of resistance to this song, as Davis knows. I had to get underneath what that was and why I felt that. This song was a labor of love, and it was just such a big concept for all of us to wrap our heads around.
It's a grieving process, and it's a forgiveness process of being able to say, oh my God, walk beside yourself.
There's a lot of power in self-forgiveness, and I think ultimately that's a lot of what this song is about. But that's hard. That's a hard thing to do.
It takes a lot of work and a lot of vulnerability and courage to say what's true, even when you don't want to.
I'm so glad that this song is on this album. And I don't even know if it's one of those you hear it once and you're already in, or if it's one of those that you need to hear a couple times for you to really go like, oh, wow. But I mean, it was that for me. I needed to process all of that.
This is the first thing I've heard in a while where it just really grabbed my attention, you know, like lyrically. I'm so proud of those lyrics.
I think that one was a total team effort. We went into that day not knowing what we were going to do, except for Davis having that guitar vibe that you had.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a studio or like the computer or Pro Tools or anything like that. We just wrote a song on a guitar that day, which Davis and I don't normally do. That's not our typical process.
I think that informed a lot of the production, honestly. I think I knew that we had a big song as far as the songwriting, caliber of it goes. And it was like, well, I kind of want everybody to feel like we felt at the end of the day, or I guess how I felt at the end of the day, but how we look back on that day and think about this song now is sitting right outside those doors of yours, on a beautiful day. And it was like, well, I think everybody should get to feel that way and not have to outsmart. This song did not need help.
I got to give Davis a lot of credit for fighting for that particular song. And it wasn't until he really pushed me to go back and revisit it and really just take it for what it was that it finally clicked for me. I'm so, so proud of that song in particular. I think it's such a standout song on this record, and it really just ties everything together for me with a bow. And, I will also say too that when my husband first heard the demo of it, he looked at me with misty eyes and he was like, you can't not record this song. This song has to be on your album.
Actually, that's probably was the linchpin for you. Somebody who knows you inside and out was like, what are you thinking, homie? You're like, you're right. Your
100%.
barometer, it was like, yoing, yoing, yoing,
Yep, 100%. And I'm so glad because I don't think this album would be what it is without that song.